On Rockies, we agree the Rockies can do more to recognize great Rockies players of the past.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 6th day of January in the year 2022. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here. Let's talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every single day here on, well, not almost every single day. You're going to catch me on my technicalities because we're in our little off season here, but that's all right. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Don't miss Locked On Rockies on YouTube, so you can be part of the live chat, just like Andy is like right now. What's up, Andy? And he points out the Rock On Ring of Fame. That has a good ring to it. We're going to talk Purple Rose idea of a Ring of Fame for the Rockies. And I think this is a great idea. I think the Rockies, we're seeing it already. We've already seen it. We experience it all the time with the impact that getting recognition as a Rockies player, you already have to deal with. We've talked about that before. So why not be the place that is the ultimate resource and reference and highlight of Rockies players than right in your own backyard, especially with the Rockies having the real estate owner, the Monforts owning the real estate that they own in the Denver area and just within the real estate inside Coors Field as well. I think the Rockies could make a really, really cool, we'll talk Ring of Fame, but I think the Rockies could make a really cool Hall of Fame for their players and for their organization as well. Yes, it's not a huge, deep, long, rich history, but it's a pretty fascinating one at the same time. Yes, it's a team that still has yet to win its division. It's a team that hasn't made it to the playoffs a bunch, but it's a team with arguably one of the greatest baseball stories ever. It's a team that is kind of defies the odds in terms of being a product that isn't always great, but still turns people out to the ballpark every day. There's lots of people that deserve to be recognized throughout the Rockies being where they're at, and not a team that you're hearing in conversations about being up for sale and moving and going along and changing locations. One thing you can say about the Rockies and their history is they're not going to go anywhere. They are we had that one concerned listener as well, but the Rockies have already started making themselves pretty synonymous with the area and sports in the area. I mean, at least for me and an increasing number of people, the Rockies have always been around. I mean, I know that's not the case, and I know there's still plenty more people where the Rockies weren't around and that wasn't the case. But for people like me, the Rockies have always existed. The Rockies, and in my eyes, the Rockies always will. And in that time, we've seen teams of high highs. We've seen really bad teams. We've seen international players. We've seen players bounce back. We've seen, I mean, just it's not going to be a massive Hall of Fame. But take, for example, one of those dugout stores that the Rockies have. They kind of have two of them in Coors Field. If you turn one of those into a place where you can kind of go and see, and there's a cool, really big exhibit about Rocktober, there's some stuff about the foundation. You could put, Dinger's broken shell out on display. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you could do to add to Coors Field to enhance an already elite, stadium experience. Part of what it is why not highlight the more about these players? Why not give people and fans, and especially with how many out-of-state and non-Colorado Rockies fans go to Coors Field, why not give them an opportunity to learn about the really good players, the good times, and the successes of the Colorado Rockies, while also being able to still enjoy the game? I really love, when I've seen in my time going to Cincinnati and the Kansas City ballpark and seeing those Hall of Fames and seeing what it's at. I know those teams obviously have way longer, way deeper, way more in depth or way bigger history in terms of baseball. But it's still really cool because it's a team that you don't think about all the time. And so when you do get that chance, and I see what you're saying there, Joel, when you do get the chance to go to a ballpark and then you get to go and walk through the Hall of Fame, it's kind of one of the coolest parts. The Royals one was especially cool, and then the history for the Reds is incredible. And I haven't been to Atlanta, no, but I hear about that. It's always really cool that these new stadiums that you're hearing about are taking things in and embracing the history of the team. Just like it's cool to walk through Fenway and walk through Wrigley, and it's that they make it as I'm glad they've modernized some of the stuff, but how it is walking through history. There's a lot the Rockies should celebrate, honestly. And the Rockies have been around for a good chunk of time. I think to continue to build the identity, build the lore, and build the deeper, more passionate Rockies fans is to have more access and more exposure to your greats. More Rockies fans, more people in Colorado should know more of the players on the 2017. And they should know how improbable and how crazy that run really was. They should know about the Rockies of 17 and 18 being the first ones to go back to back. They should know about hitting for cycles and major milestones. They should also know on the flip side how many milestones and weird things Coors Field and the Rockies themselves have been a part of. How many people have gotten hit number 3,000 against the Rockies? I mean, you have the Ichiro moment, you have big time moments in baseball history that involve the Rockies. And I think that would be it's not going to be the most in-depth, craziest museum ever, but be a great thing to add to your stadium tour. Be a great thing to do when you're in the middle of the third inning when you want to check it out. And there's so many unique and fun ball players that should be highlighted. I mean, think about it. If you're going to talk to some people, how many people are going to know about Andres Galarraga? How many people are going to know about Kaz Matsui, Yorvi Toriyalba, Jeff Francis, Brian Fuentes, even Cargo to an extent, and then of course highlighted by some of the major big names that the Rockies have had. I mean, I think it'd be something really cool to consider them, and just the fact that this is a team that does a lot for the stadium experience, and I think this could be something that adds to that as well. Let's take a look more into what Purple Row had to say about a Ring of Fame, and let's get a couple of dive into the live chat a little bit more. If you're in the live chat, tell me who you think should be tell me about some of your favorite Rockies players who should be enshrined in our makeshift Hall of Fame. I think I don't know. Maybe I said that right. But anyway, let's dive into all that. But before we do that, I got to tell you about our friends at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then I got the thing for you. You got to try Built Bar. Built is actually healthy, actually tasty. They are delicious. Seriously, you won't think they're good for you, but here's the deal, folks. They got the macros you are looking for. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. The 4 grams of sugar, big deal for someone like me who's got that sweet tooth. And guess what? They come in the crazy flavors: churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, all sorts delicious stuff. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box of the hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. Head on over to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and get yourself a big old box of Built bars. We're talking Ring of Fame. We're talking Rockies that need to be recognized and recognizing Rockies players. And let's take a look here as in the live chat. we did learn that Coors Field is the third oldest ballpark in the NL behind Wrigley and Dodger Stadium. It's interesting because it doesn't feel that way, but it's something you wonder what the Rockies are going to do when it comes to stadium renovations, big changes, and things of that nature when they eventually are going to have to do something like that. And adding something like a Ring of Fame or a Hall of Fame would be, I think, a cool piece to add to it. Some people that they'd want to see in the Hall of Fame, the Rockies Ring of Fame as well. Let's take a look. Deluxe Gangsters says Nolan Arenado. Nick Tolan says Cargo, Tulo, and Chuck are the easy three from the last 15 years for me. Nicholas Delvo says Dante, Larry, Andres, Vinny, just to name a few. The Blake Street Bombers. Joel DeGray says Ubaldo Jimenez, Todd Helton, Larry Walker, Chuck, Dante Bichette, and Cargo. I mean, just listen to those names. People don't understand that these are great baseball players, and those are no names. Baseball fans know those names, sure, but have they really been able to get a lot of opportunity to go somewhere to actually learn about Rockies players and Rockies history? Where would you go, for example? It's where would, like these teams have their places to go. Like we've mentioned, teams have their Hall of Fames, but right now, if you wanted to go visit somewhere to learn a lot about the Rockies and learn about their history and see Rockies artifacts, your only option is to go to a stadium tour and go catch a ball game. You have to be at Coors Field and do something Coors Field related. So there's no place for, I mean, there's obviously dugout stores. There's other things. There's, I'm sure, some museums and things of that nature and a spread out. I'm sure, but there's no big central place for Rockies fans and people across the region to be able to go and learn. It would be really cool because for the Rockies to help build out baseball museums in Colorado. Even if you don't do it at Coors Field, maybe it's something you partner with the Rockies, because isn't there a really cool baseball museum in Colorado? Don't they do something that's a really special museum? I have my memory has to be refreshed on that, but I think it was a big project that was being put together, and there was a bunch of really cool stuff, and it was highlighted during the All-Star game. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this would be a cool way for the Rockies to also talk Denver Bears, for the Rockies to talk about other minor league teams and being involved in other cities and the reach that the Rockies have through outer region. I mean, there's a lot of people that like the Rockies because that's the only baseball team that's geographically all that close to them. And that's pretty cool. And there's a lot of international players. There's a lot of all sorts of cool stuff that the Rockies could be celebrating. Let's get some more players that are shouted out that we'd want to see in the Ring of Fame. Holiday, Hop, Atkins, and Fuentes, all great. I mean, that lineup right there, that is a prime mid 2000s Rockies lineup, and we've seen. I mean, there's all sorts of great players that are going to go through, because again, they're not all going to make the Hall of Fame. Not every Rockies player is going to have as strong of a case as Larry and Todd Helton are. So they need to be celebrated. Troy Tulowitzki's career needs to be celebrated. It might have been impacted. It might have been short, and then the trade and all that stuff. But that guy was incredible. These pitchers that we're hearing about, we're hearing about Fuentes, Cook, Francis, De La Rosa, Manny Corpus, Ubaldo Jimenez. Tell the story of Rockies pitchers that are great, that took on the challenge of Coors Field and said, we're going to be good. We're going to be good. We're going to be successful. We are going to be impactful players. There's so many players that impact the game every season that unfortunately don't get the praise that they need, because it's of course it's a superstar league. Everything's a superstar league. So you focus on the big flashy things, but there's plenty of players and moments and Rockies history and players to highlight, and lots of love for the Sky Sox in the live chat as well. All right. We said we were going to do that in that segment. We didn't do it in that segment, but that is okay. We're going to see what Purple Row has to say about the Ring of Fame here now in segment number 3, coming up next. Thank you again for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Just got to search Locked On Rockies to be taken to where you need to go. For your second listen of the day, why don't you make it Locked On MLB Prospects? They got everything you need to know about the farm systems of your favorite teams, especially the Colorado Rockies. Lindsey Crosby is your draft prospects expert. We've had him on the show. He's an expert. He knows what he's talking about. So make sure you go check out that for more about MLB prospects. Okay, let's head on over here to Purple Row. Let's read from Paul Elliott over here. Retiring a player's number is the greatest honor a franchise can bestow for a club's best player, which has only been given to two players in Rockies history. But retiring numbers should be held exclusive, but teams should find other ways to honor players that were important to the team, fans, and the city. While there's not much to emulate from the Denver Broncos right now, their Ring of Fame is a great way to remember former players without running out of uniform numbers. Look at the Yankees. The Ring of Fame can honor more than just players, which the Rockies already have with the KSG by the retired 17 and 33 in right field to honor the late Kelly McGregor. Players, coaches, broadcasters, and executives could all be added into the Ring of Fame when appropriate. The Rockies can add a Ring of Fame around the lower level of cores by adding players that were not necessarily Hall of Famers, but were important to the team and the fans. Think of players that were all-stars and fan favorites, but not at the Hall of Fame level. In addition to the names around the level of the ballpark, the members could also have a section dedicated to them in the McGregor Square Rockies Hall of Fame. So I was wondering about this. Is there a Rockies Hall of Fame already in McGregor Square? I gotta come clean, folks. I don't know if I've been to Coors too much since McGregor Square has been there. So if there's already one, that sounds great. Maybe it's just still building and growing. So this is great. It's great news right here. So that's something that, kind of makes the beginning of my podcast a little bit moot, but that's all right. Let's look at who they think they should be added. Because, I mean, the criteria, you can go read the criteria for yourself. Because I just want to see some of the players that get recognized here. The original four members of the Blake Street Bombers are the first choice for the initial Ring of Fame class. Andres Galarraga, Larry Walker, Vinny Castilla, and Dante Bichette all fit the criteria and were a major part of the beginning of the young Colorado Rockies franchise. Larry Walker is already honored with his number retired after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but the other players deserve their respect for their contribution to the young expansion team and making the playoffs for the very first time in 1995. Vinny Castilla even works as a special assistant at current GM Bill Schmidt. Likewise, Pedro Estacio spent 5 seasons with the Rockies and was one of the best pitchers for the Rockies in the 90s. The Rockies players that were crucial for their World Series run in 2007, like Matt Holliday, Jeff Francis, and Aaron Cook, are example of other players that could be honored in a Ring of Fame. Rockies great Jorge De La Rosa holds many of the all-time pitching records for the club and deserves to have a spot on the lower ring of Coors Field. Other fan favorites like Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki would be easy choices from the 2010s Rockies teams that could make it onto the Ring of Fame. And in the future, players like Charlie Blackmon and Kyle Freeland will be obvious choices for their part in the 2017 and 2018 playoff teams, both of which will have spent most, if not all, of their MLB careers in purple. Some non-players, Paul recommends Don Baylor, Clint Hurdle, and Jim Tracy is also mentioned there. I would put Jack Corrigan on a list of someone that would be qualified for that. Jack obviously came over from Cleveland, but has called Rockies games literally my entire life. So this would be a really cool idea. Again, any way Rockies fans can celebrate their favorite players, because they are cool players. What's cool, or at least, I mean, and I guess it's the bias or whatever, sure, but these Rockies players, the ones that are recognized, that what they did on the field, it was just impressive and was just fun to watch. It made the Rockies, even in down times, there was reasons to watch. And we'll close here on Joel's question here. Do you think anyone's going to wear 19 again? Oh, man, that's a good list. Their Aviator, Eric Young Jr., Dexter Fowler, Willie Taveras, and Rosario. Dexter Fowler, absolutely. But is anyone ever going to wear 19 again? No. There will never be. There is no possible way that Charlie Blackmon's number is not the next one retired by the Rockies. he has been he has been really the face of this franchise. He has embodied Rockies baseball. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but when Charlie Blackmon's career ends as a Colorado Rocky, because again, I don't think it'll end anywhere else. There is just no chance that anyone should wear Charlie Blackmon's number ever again. I just don't think that would. I think Charlie Blackmon is a retired number and really big recognition at the ballpark because he's not going to make it to Cooperstown type of player. But for Rockies fans and for the Rockies, especially in the past era of baseball, Charlie Blackmon has been pivotal. He would be someone that I think should absolutely have his number retired. I don't like the thing is should 228 any of those? I don't think so. The career's not as long. When you hit double digits with a team for me, that's pretty much that would be it. Cargo's with the 5 is tough, but the Holiday co-retire, that could be interesting. That is a really interesting idea there because it's those two players are so important to the Rockies in different ways. And yeah, and seeing number 5 on anyone else is way different. That's an interesting point there, Aviator. But we definitely won't see anyone wear the number 19 after Charlie Blackmon in Colorado ever again, in my opinion, at least. But you're going to see this podcast again next week after we enjoy the weekend, which I hope you all do, because this has been the Locked On Rockies podcast, where you can find your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. The live chat popping off today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you want to be part of the show, subscribe to Locked On Rockies on YouTube. Know when we are live, and you can pop into the live chat just like FNLA Aviator, Deluxe Gangster, Joel DeGrace, Nicholas Delvo, let's see, Andy Schrant as well. All sorts of Rockies fans tuning in today. Thank you so much for your time. And folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.